Do you ever wonder if God even cares? Hey everybody, it's Pastor Justin Walker here, and it's the whole truth. We're going through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we're not skipping anything. I want you to come along with me, so grab a Bible, subscribe to the channel, follow along with the page, make sure to leave me a comment, and share the videos. It helps them to go further. Today, it seems like a list of names. We've been dealing with this guy named Noah. Noah built an ark. There was a great flood, flooded the entire earth. Noah and his family were the only ones to survive. And the animals that were on the ark with him, you know that story. The animals had come to Noah 2 by 2. Well, that's a real story of a real guy. And this is the lineage that comes from him. These are the people that come from him. And so it's Genesis chapter 10. It seems like a boring list of names, but it's not. Let's look at it. Genesis chapter 10 and verse 1. Now this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, Togarmah. And the sons of Javan were Elisha, and Tarshish, and Kittim, and Dodanim. And from these were the coastland people of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations. Now, that starts out with, these are the sons of Noah. And I know those are some crazy names, and I probably mispronounced some of them, but those names are pretty important. First of all, I want you to see this. Did you notice that these are the sons of Noah? And then the sons of Noah, they had sons after the flood. And this guy named Japheth, he's one of the sons of Noah, and he has a son. And so that's the grandson of Noah. And this guy's name is Gomer. Well, interestingly enough, we can find through a historian named Josephus that Josephus traced the line of Gomer all the way to the Galatian people. And so you've got this guy named Josephus, and he's writing during the Roman world. And so he is telling the story of, or writing the story of the Jews, or the history of the Jews. And he's able to trace, actually backwards, he's able to trace from the Galatians back to this guy named Gomer. And then you see this guy named Magog. The sons of Japheth were Gomer and Magog. Well, Magog is actually traced, the same guy, Josephus, he traces Magog all the way to a people called the Scythians. Well, that's a pretty important people too, because Paul says that there's neither bond nor free, there's neither male nor female, and he says there's neither barbarian or Scythian. He mentions those people in the New Testament. And so my point would simply be this. I want you to stick with me for a moment. God knows each and every one of us. He knew these people. He knew these people. He traced their line. Now, God's going to focus his word in on the Hebrew people, the nation of Israel, as they'll be known later. And God begins to focus in on that group of people for a while through the Old Testament. And so we don't see much more of these names, but we see this very interesting thing that happens where God records the names of the sons of Noah and their sons and that generation that can be traced. And I want you to know that God, he knew them, and God knows you. Now check this out. Look with me. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, Sabdeka, and the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Do you see that? If you started out with just this Ham's line, bringing this guy named Nimrod, and you were to read that he was a hunter and he was mighty before the Lord, you would begin to think that he hunted animals, that he was a great hunter, and that he was a hunter for the Lord. But that's not really what that means. If you pay attention, especially in verse 10, you see that, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Well, Babel, that becomes the Tower of Babel and also the center of Babylon. And so that's not a good place to be. They were a rebellious people, and Nimrod the same. He wasn't just a hunter of animal. Now, I've read a lot of people say, well, he wasn't a hunter of animals. Well, that's not what the verse necessarily means, but I don't know whether he was or whether he wasn't. But I would say this, we do know that he gathered up the people and began to make one nation. Okay, I don't have a lot of time to go into all this right now. I'm not going to make a huge video about this now because it'll come in the future. But Nimrod is a first picture in the Bible of what we'll see later as a man named the Antichrist. He is the opposite of Christ. He is anti-Christ. He will claim to be Christ, and he will bring all the world together. And that's what Nimrod had tried to do. God had said, be fruitful, multiply, and disperse, and fill the earth. Nimrod tried to make a mighty people. He was a mighty guy, and how was he mighty? Well, he was mighty by bringing the people together. And we'll see that in tomorrow's video in chapter 11. Now, follow along with me. Let's move on to verse 15. Canaan begot Sedan, his firstborn, Heth, the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgashite, the Hivite, the Archite, the Sinite, the Arvadite, the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. Afterwards, the families of the Canaanites were dispersed, and the borders of the Canaanites, the border of the Canaanites was from Sedan, as you go toward Garir, as far as Gaza, and then as you go towards Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These were the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands and in their nations. Now, you notice that we focus in for just a moment about these Canaanite people, the sons of Canaan, and where they went. Of course, that would be important because God is going to send the Israelite people later in the future, hundreds of years later in the future. He's going to send the Israelite people into the land of Canaan. It's the promised land, but it's the land where the Canaanites are. And the Israelite people will have to drive out the Canaanites. And so we're seeing a little bit of their history as well. And then move forward with me. I want to get to the end of the chapter there. So let's move forward to verse 31 and read this. These were the sons of Shem according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. These were the families of the sons of Noah according to their generations, in their nations. And from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Now, some people have made some big deal about that, the fact that it says that the people were divided, making it sound like maybe the world was divided, like there were still some big physical things happening on the earth, maybe because of the flood. But that doesn't seem to be the way that reads. What we really read there is that the people were separated. This is the way that the people were separated. We see the same thing today. We're designated by our states or by our counties, by our countries, and we're seeing a similar thing here in the Bible, that these people were divided by their languages and by their lands and by the people that they were born from, whether it be from Noah, whether it be from Ham, Shem, or from Japheth. So from one of those three sons, these guys came, and God recorded this all the way to until now. Here we are, thousands of years later, still reading the names of these people. And I told you earlier that God cares about you. He cared about them, and he cares about you. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 10 and verse 28, 29, or 29 and forward, he says this. He says that a sparrow is sold for a penny, and yet not one of those sparrows falls to the ground that the Lord doesn't know about it. And the Lord knows you. He actually knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows you very well. And here's what I would ask you. How are you known by the Lord? What does he know you for? Does he know you like he knows Nimrod? You know, when we read about Nimrod here, Nimrod was known, but it's not a positive thing that Nimrod is known for. You know, if you don't have Jesus as your Savior, then you're known by the Lord, but you'll be known for your sin. But if you do have Jesus as your Savior, then you'll be known by the Father, and you'll be known as a child of his. He will adopt you into his family if you'll put your faith in his son Jesus. And you'll be known by him in a very good way, because you'll be known by him under the blood of his son. All right, everybody, I hope that you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow with Genesis chapter 11.